The break through the coffee in Dr. Elena Vasquez's mug had gone cold hours ago, but she barely noticed. Her dark eyes were fixed on the holographic display floating above her desk, showing equations that would have driven lesser minds to madness. The Titan research station hummed quietly around her, its corridors empty except for the night shift security guards. Most of the research team had gone to bed, but Elena couldn't sleep. Not when she was this close to solving the greatest puzzle in human history. "Computer, run simulation 2847, she said, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. The holographic display shifted, showing a three-dimensional model of spacetime. For a moment, it looked stable. Then, like a soap bubble popping, reality itself seemed to tear open in the center of the display. "Simulation complete," the computer announced in its calm, synthetic voice. "Quantum fabric breach achieved. Estimated tunnel stability, 4.7 seconds. Elena's heart raced. 4.7 seconds. That was 3 seconds longer than her last attempt. She was getting closer. The door to her lab slid open, and Dr. Marcus Chun walked in carrying 2 cups of fresh coffee. Marcus was Elena's closest friend on the station and the only person crazy enough to work these impossible hours with her. His black hair was messy, and his lab coat was wrinkled, but his eyes sparkled with the same obsessive curiosity that drove Elena. "Still trying to break the laws of physics?" Marcus asked, setting 1 cup next to Elena's keyboard. "Physics is just a suggestion," Elena replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "And I think I'm finally getting somewhere." Marcus looked at the holographic display, his eyes widening as he saw the simulation results. "Elena, this is actually working. You're creating stable tiers in spacetime." "Not stable enough," Elena said, shaking her head. "The tunnel collapses too quickly. We need at least 30 seconds for a ship to pass through." For the past 2 years, Elena had been working on what she called the quantum breach drive, while other scientists tried to bend spacetime like folding paper. Elena wanted to cut through it entirely. Her theory was simple but revolutionary. If you could manipulate the quantum fabric of reality itself, you could create shortcuts between distant points in space. The inspiration had come from an unlikely source. While watching her daughter play with a needle and thread, Elena had noticed how the needle didn't push the fabric aside, but created a small hole that closed behind it. What if spacetime worked the same way? "Show me the power requirements," Marcus said, pulling up another display. Elena grimaced. "That's the problem. Each attempt needs more energy than the last. This simulation would require the entire output of a fusion reactor for 12 hours. The Council will never approve that much power for a test," Marcus said. "Then we won't tell them," Elena replied with a mischievous grin. "Besides, what's the worst that could happen?" 3 days later, Elena stood in the main laboratory of Titan Research Station, surrounded by the most advanced equipment humanity had ever built. The quantum breach drive prototype looked like a metallic ring 3 meters in diameter, covered in sensors and energy conduits. It hummed with barely contained power, drawing energy from the station's 3 fusion reactors. Dr. Sarah Kim, the station's chief engineer, monitored the power systems from her control panel. Sarah was known for her cautious nature, and she looked nervous as the energy readings climbed higher than anything they'd attempted before. "Power at 60%, Sarah announced. "All systems stable." Elena stood at the main control console, her hands dancing across the holographic interface. Next to her, Marcus operated the quantum field generators, his face a mask of concentration. "Beginning quantum fabric manipulation," Elena said. "Field generators online." The air around the ring began to shimmer like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The shimmer grew stronger, and suddenly the space inside the ring seemed to twist and bend. Reality itself was becoming unstable. "Power at 80%, Sarah called out, her voice tight with worry. "We're approaching maximum safe limits." "Just a little more," Elena said. "I can feel it working." The shimmer inside the ring intensified, and suddenly there was a sound like reality itself was tearing. The space inside the ring turned completely black, as if someone had cut a hole in the universe. Through the hole, they could see stars, not the stars visible from Titan, but strange constellations from somewhere else entirely. Portal achieved. Marcus shouted over the growing hum of the machinery. "We have a stable quantum breach." Elena felt tears of joy streaming down her face. They had done it. They had created humanity's first faster-than-light gateway. But their celebration was short-lived. Power surge. Sarah screamed. "The reactors are overloading." The ring began to vibrate violently. The black hole in its center expanded, growing, larger and more unstable. Energy readings spiked beyond anything they had prepared for. "Shut it down," Elena ordered, but it was too late. The quantum breach collapsed with a sound like thunder. The ring cracked in several places, and sparks flew from the control consoles. Emergency lights bathed the lab in red as the station's power system struggled to cope with the energy backlash. "Everyone okay?" Elena asked, coughing in the smoke-filled air. "We're alive," Marcus replied, checking his instruments. "But the drive is completely destroyed." Sarah looked at her power readings in disbelief. The energy backlash traveled through the quantum field. "I'm reading massive space-time distortions extending out from our position." "How far?" Elena asked. "At least 50 light years in every direction," Sarah said quietly. "Elena, whatever we just did, it didn't just affect our local space. The quantum breach created ripples that are spreading across the galaxy." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "What kind of ripples?" "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "But they're strong enough to be detected by any civilization with advanced sensors. If there's anyone out there, they know something happened here." Unknown to the humans on Titan Research Station, their test had indeed been noticed. Throughout the galaxy, ancient civilizations with technology far beyond human understanding detected the massive space-time distortions. On worlds where beings had traveled between stars for millions of years, emergency alerts began to sound. On the crystalline world of Zephyria Prime, Ambassador Zixthara received the urgent message while attending a cultural ceremony. Zixthara was tall and elegant, with skin that changed color based on her emotions. Right now, her skin was a deep blue, indicating serious concern. Asterisk, the readings are confirmed, her aide reported. A massive quantum breach event occurred in the outer spiral arm. The distortions are still spreading. Zixthara's skin turned silver, the color of deep thought. What could create such a disturbance? Unknown, Ambassador. But the energy signature suggests a civilization has developed primitive breach technology. Primitive? Zixthara's skin flashed red with alarm. You mean they don't know how to properly contain the quantum effects? It appears not. The breach was completely uncontrolled. If they continue these experiments, they could destabilize space-time across multiple star systems. Zixthara stood quickly, her ceremonial robes flowing around her. "Prepare my ship. We need to investigate immediately. And send word to the Galactic Council. This could be a threat to everyone." Meanwhile, on the war world of Krathos, General Vextar received similar reports. The Krathosians were a warrior race with dark red skin and 4 arms, each ending in sharp claws. They had conquered dozens of worlds before joining the galactic community, and they still believed that most problems could be solved with superior firepower. "A new species has developed breach technology," Vextar's intelligence officer reported. "They appear to be from a system in the outer rim." "Are they a threat?" Vextar growled, his forearms crossing over his armored chest. "Potentially. Their technology is crude and dangerous. Each use could damage space-time permanently. Then we destroy them before they can cause more damage, Vextar said simply. Ready the fleet. Sir, perhaps we should wait for the Council's decision? The Council talks too much, Vextar replied. I act. On the peaceful world of harmony, the Celestials receive the same reports with different emotions. The Celestials were beings of pure energy who had transcended physical form eons ago. They appeared as glowing humanoid shapes that flickered between different colors. Asterisk. The young species shows promise, observed Elder Luminara, her form pulsing with gentle golden light. But they are like children playing with fusion bombs. Should we intervene? Asked her companion, Radiance. Yes, but carefully. If we reveal ourselves too quickly, we might frighten them into making even more dangerous choices. Across the galaxy, dozens of civilizations were having similar conversations. Some wanted to help the humans, others wanted to destroy them, and a few wanted to study them from a distance. But all agreed on one thing. The human experiments with quantum breach technology could not be allowed to continue unchecked. Asterisk. Back on Titan Research Station, Elena and her team worked frantically to understand what had happened. The destroyed prototype had left them with massive amounts of data, but also with a growing sense of dread about what they might have unleashed. The quantum effects are still spreading, Sarah reported, her voice worried. They're not dissipating like I expected. If anything, they're getting stronger. That's impossible, Marcus said, looking over her shoulder at the readings. Energy dissipates over distance. It doesn't amplify. Not in normal space, Elena said quietly. But we weren't working in normal space. We were manipulating the quantum fabric itself. The rules might be different. A new alarm began to sound throughout the station. The communications officer, Lieutenant Torres, called out from his station. Dr. Vasquez, we're receiving a transmission from outside the solar system. Alana's blood ran cold. That's impossible. There's no human presence beyond Neptune. The transmission is not from humans, Torres said, his voice barely above a whisper. It's alien. The main display screen flickered to life, showing a face unlike anything humans had ever seen. Zixthara's skin was shifting between blue and silver as she spoke, her large eyes fixed on the camera. People of Earth, she said, her voice melodious but filled with urgency. I am Ambassador Zixthara of the Galactic Council. Your recent experiments have created dangerous distortions. In space-time, we must speak immediately. Elena felt the world spinning around her. Aliens, real aliens. And they were concerned about her experiments. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez, she managed to say. I'm the lead researcher on the Quantum Breach Drive project. Dr. Vasquez? Zixthara replied, her skin now a deep purple, indicating extreme seriousness. You and your species are in great danger. What you call a breakthrough, we call a potential catastrophe. If you continue these experiments, you could tear holes in reality that will never heal. I don't understand, Elena said. Our calculations show. Your calculations are wrong, Zixthara interrupted. You are working with forces beyond your current understanding. I am coming to speak with you directly. Please, for the sake of your world and ours, conduct no more experiments until we can meet. The transmission ended, leaving Alana and her team staring at a blank screen. They had achieved their dream of faster-than-light travel, but in doing so, they had apparently threatened the entire galaxy. What have we done? Elena whispered. Outside their solar system, ships from dozens of different worlds were already moving toward Earth. Some came in peace, others in preparation for war. The age of human isolation was over, and it had ended with humanity being seen as a threat to galactic civilization. The quantum breach drive had worked exactly as Elena had hoped. But like many human inventions, It had consequences that no one had anticipated. The galaxy was about to meet humanity, and the first impression was one of fear. Elena looked at the destroyed prototype and realized that her greatest achievement might also be her greatest mistake. The next few days would determine whether humanity would be welcomed into the galactic community or destroyed as a threat to everyone else. The stars, which had once seemed so distant and peaceful, now seemed full of danger and possibility in equal measure. Humanity's journey to the stars had begun, but it was not the journey anyone had expected. First contact and growing concerns. 3 days after the first alien transmission, Elena stood in the emergency briefing room of Titan Research Station, surrounded by the most important people in human space exploration. Admiral Rebecca Stone, the head of the Solar Defense Force, sat across from her with a grim expression. Director James Park from the Earth Science Council looked exhausted, having traveled from Mars in record time. Even Dr. William Hayes, the elderly head of the Theoretical Physics Institute, had made the journey from Earth's moon. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," Admiral Stone said, her steel-gray eyes fixed on Elena. "You created a tear in space-time that can be detected from 50 light-years away, and now aliens are coming to visit us?" "That's a simplified version, but yes," Elena replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "The quantum breach drive appears to have created distortions that spread far beyond our solar system. And these aliens sound worried," Director Park added. "What exactly did we do wrong?" Before Elena could answer, Lieutenant Torres called out from the communications station. "We have multiple contacts approaching the outer system. They're not using any propulsion system we recognize." Admiral Stone stood up quickly. "How many ships?" "At least 20, possibly more. They're moving at incredible speeds, but they're not showing any aggressive intentions. In fact, they seem to be following some kind of formation protocols." Elena felt her heart racing. 20 alien ships. This was either humanity's greatest moment or its last. "Dr. Vasquez," Torres continued, "we're receiving another transmission from the ship that contacted us before. Ambassador Zixthara is requesting permission to dock with the station." Elena looked at Admiral Stone, who nodded grimly. "Tell her she has permission. But keep our defense systems ready." "Our defense systems wouldn't stop a paper airplane compared to their technology," Dr. Hayes said quietly. "If they wanted to destroy us, they would have done it already." 2 hours later, Elena stood in the station's main docking bay, watching as the alien shuttle approached. It was beautiful in a way that human technology had never achieved. Smooth curves of silver, metal that seemed to flow like liquid, with no visible seams or joints. The shuttle landed with barely a whisper of sound. A door opened in the side of the craft, and Ambassador Zixthara stepped out. She was even more impressive in person than she had been on the screen. Nearly 7 feet tall, with skin that shifted. Between blue and silver, she moved with a grace that seemed almost supernatural. Her eyes were large and expressive, and when she looked at Elena, there was both wisdom and concern in her gaze. "Dr. Vasquez," Zixthara said, her voice carrying a musical quality that made Elena think of wind chimes. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." "Thank you for coming," Elena replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "I have to admit, this is not how I expected first contact to happen. First contact rarely happens as anyone expects," Zixthara said, with what might have been a smile. "May we speak privately? What I have to tell you is of critical importance." Elena led the ambassador to a small conference room where Admiral Stone and Director Park were waiting. As they sat down, Elena noticed that Zixthara's skin had turned a deep purple, the same color she had displayed during their first transmission. "Your species has achieved something remarkable," Zixthara began. "The ability to manipulate quantum fabric is not a simple technological development. It represents a fundamental understanding of the universe that most species take millions of years to develop. That sounds like a compliment, Admiral Stone said carefully. It would be, if you had developed it safely, Zixthara replied. But your quantum breach drive is incredibly dangerous. Every time you use it, you create tears in space-time that weaken the fabric of reality itself. Elena leaned forward. Our calculations show that the tears are self-healing. The quantum fabric should return to its original state within hours. Your calculations are based on incomplete data, Zixthara said gently. You are working with forces that your current physics cannot fully explain. The tears you create do not heal. They spread. Each use of your drive makes the damage worse. Damage? To what? Director Park asked. To everything, Zixthara said, her skin now flashing red with alarm. If the tears become large enough, they could consume entire star systems. Planets, stars, even the space between them would simply cease to exist. Elena felt sick. How do? You know this? Because we have seen it happen before, Zixthara said sadly. 17,000 years ago, a species called the Vorthik developed similar technology. They refused to listen to warnings from the galactic community. Their experiments eventually created a tear that consumed their entire sector of the galaxy. Thousands of worlds were lost. The room fell silent. Elena tried to process what she was hearing. Her greatest achievement, the thing that was supposed to bring humanity to the stars, was potentially a galaxy-ending weapon. What happened to the Vorthik? Elena asked quietly. They were consumed by their own creation, Zixthara replied. But not before their experiments had damaged space-time so severely that we are still dealing with the consequences. There are regions of space that remain unstable to this day. Admiral Stone cleared her throat. What do you want from us? Stop your experiments, Zixthara said simply. Allow us to help you develop safer, faster-than-light technology. Join the galactic community as a responsible member species. And if we refuse? Admiral Stone asked. Zixthara's skin turned white, a color Elena had not seen before. Then the Galactic Council will have to make very difficult decisions. There are those who believe the only way to prevent another Vorthik incident is to ensure it never happens again. Elena understood the implication. You're talking about destroying us. I am talking about survival, Zixthara said. Not just for humanity, but for everyone. The damage you have already caused is spreading. If you continue your experiments, you will eventually reach a point where no one can stop what you have started. Elena stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. A few days ago, they had represented infinite possibility. Now they seemed threatening, filled with civilizations that saw humanity as a danger to be eliminated. How do we know you're telling the truth? Elena asked. How do we know this isn't just a way to keep us from developing technology that might threaten you? Because, Zixthara said, standing up as well, I am going to show you. The ambassador pressed a small device, and suddenly the room filled with a three-dimensional hologram showing a section of space. Elena could see stars, planets, and what looked like space stations connected by streams of light. This is the Vorthak sector as it appeared 18,000 years ago, Zixthara explained. A thriving region with over 300 inhabited worlds. The hologram shifted, showing the same region but different. Where there had been stars and planets, now there was only empty space with strange distortions that seemed to twist light itself. This is the same region today, Zixthara said. The tears in space-time have not healed. They have expanded and consumed everything. We maintain monitoring stations at a safe distance, but nothing can survive in the affected area. Elena stared at the hologram in horror. All those worlds gone, Zixthara confirmed. And the damage continues to spread, slowly but steadily. Our best scientists estimate that it will take another 50,000 years for the region to begin stabilizing. Dr. Vasquez, Admiral Stone said, I think we need to consider the ambassador's offer very seriously. Elena turned back to the group. What kind of safer technology are you talking about? There are many ways to travel faster than light, Zixthara explained. Most involve working with space-time rather than against it. Instead of tearing holes in reality, you can create temporary curves that allow you to step from one point to another. That's what we originally tried, Elena said. But our calculations showed it would require impossible amounts of energy. Not impossible, Zixthara said, with what was definitely a smile. Simply more advanced than your current technology allows. With our help, you could develop safe FTL travel within a few years. Elena felt torn. Part of her wanted to accept the offer immediately, but another part resisted the idea of abandoning her life's work. What would happen to the quantum breach drive research? It would have to be completely abandoned, Zixthara said. All research data destroyed, all equipment dismantled. The temptation to continue would be too great otherwise. I need time to think, Elena said. Time is something we may not have. Zixthara replied. The Galactic Council is meeting in emergency session. There are voices calling for immediate action. What kind of action? Director Park asked. The kind that would ensure humanity never conducts another quantum breach experiment, Zixthara said grimly. That night, Elena sat alone in her lab, staring at the destroyed prototype of the quantum breach drive. She had poured her life into this project, sacrificing relationships, sleep, and peace of mind. The idea of destroying it all felt like cutting out her own heart, but she couldn't stop thinking about the hologram of the Vorthix sector. 300 worlds, countless billions of lives, all consumed by technology similar to what she had created. What if humanity made the same mistake? Her thoughts were interrupted by Marcus entering the lab. Can't sleep either? He asked. How can I? Elena replied. Everything I've worked for, everything I've dreamed of, and it turns out to be a potential weapon of mass destruction. Maybe that's not entirely true, Marcus said, sitting down next to her. You discovered something incredible. The fact that it's dangerous doesn't mean it's worthless. The ambassador made it pretty clear that we have to abandon the research. Entirely. The ambassador represents one perspective, Marcus said. But what if there's another way? What if we could find a way to make the technology safe? Elena looked at him with surprise. You heard what she said about the Vorthix. I heard what she said about one species' approach to the technology, Marcus replied. But we're not the Vorthix. We're humans. Maybe we can solve problems they couldn't. Elena felt a spark of hope. You think we should continue the research? I think we should consider all our options, Marcus said. Maybe there's a way to modify the quantum breach technology to make it safe. Maybe we can find a middle ground. Elena stood up and walked to her computer. Show me the data from our last test. For the next several hours, Elena and Marcus worked through the quantum field equations, looking for any way to modify the technology. They tried dozens of different approaches, but every simulation showed the same result. The quantum breaches could not be safely controlled with current human technology. It's no use, Elena said as dawn approached. The ambassador was right. The technology is too dangerous. Maybe for now, Marcus said. But what about in the future? What if we work with the aliens to develop better control systems? They want the research completely abandoned, Elena reminded him. Then maybe we don't tell them about every detail of our research, Marcus suggested. Elena looked at him in shock. You're suggesting we lie to them? I'm suggesting we keep our options open, Marcus replied. The knowledge exists now. We can't make it disappear, but we can choose how to use it. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. This was exactly the kind of thinking that had led to the Vorthek disaster. The temptation to continue, to find just one more solution, was exactly what Zixthara had warned about. No, Elena said firmly. We have to trust them. The risk is too great. Elena, this could be humanity's greatest achievement. Are you really willing to just give up? Elena looked at the destroyed prototype, then at the holographic display, still showing the equations for the quantum breach drive. Thought about the stars, about the infinite possibilities that lay beyond Earth's solar system. She thought about her daughter, who would grow up in a universe where humanity either joined the galactic community or was destroyed as a threat. Yes, she said finally, I am willing to give up, because the alternative is potentially ending. Everything. Marcus looked disappointed, but nodded. Then what do we do? We accept the ambassador's offer, Elena said. We learn their technology and join the galactic community. And we make sure that no one ever tries to rebuild the quantum breach drive. But even as she said the words, Elena knew that the knowledge would not simply disappear. Somewhere, somehow, someone would eventually try to continue the research. The question was whether humanity would be wise enough to resist the temptation, or whether they would follow the path of the Vorthek. The next morning, Elena met with Ambassador Zixthara to give her decision. The ambassador's skin glowed with relief when Elena agreed to abandon the research. You have made the right choice, Zixthara said. The Galactic Council will be pleased to welcome humanity as a member species. What happens now? Elena asked. Now we begin the long process of integration, Zixthara replied. You will learn our technologies, our languages, our cultures. It will take time, but eventually, humanity will take its place among the stars. Elena nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this was not the end of the story. Somewhere in the data they had collected, in the minds of the scientists who had worked on the project, the seeds of the quantum breach drive would remain. And someday, someone would try to make them grow. For now, though, humanity had chosen wisdom over ambition. Whether that choice would last remained to be seen. The galaxy was vast, and the temptation to unlock its secrets would always be strong. But at least for today, the universe was safe from humanity's most dangerous invention. Outside the station, the alien ships continued their patient watch, ready to help humanity take its first steps into a larger world. The age of human isolation was over, and despite the dangers they had faced, Elena felt a sense of excitement about what the future might hold. The stars were no longer distant and unreachable. They were neighbors, waiting to be explored safely, responsibly, and together with the other species that called the galaxy home. Asterisk.